All right, we are back with episode 21 of Keeping It Local, and I am here with Katherine Serrano. Am I saying that correct? Serrano Sosa
Yes.
of Rooted Architecture Studio. Really looking forward to this, Katherine. How you doing?
Hi. Hi, John. I'm doing well. It's been a week, but today's finally it slowed down for me. So I've been doing Thursday so far.
It's always good when it slows down.
Yeah. And then I know it's gonna be rough tomorrow too, but today was just back-to-back meetings, so it wasn't like jumping on grunt work.
Gotcha. Yeah, I hear you. It's always good to just get to the end of it when you're done with those and be like, all right, now we can get back to the real work.
Yeah.
All right. So give me the rundown on Rooted Architecture Studio. How did you get started? How long have you been in the business? I your website is awesome, by the way. I'm gonna plug it
Thank
right away and say people should go there because you have so much great information, but I want to know more about the genesis of it all.
Yes, okay. The inception of the idea of Root Architecture Studio started from almost like a quarter life crisis during the pandemic. Um,
Okay.
uh, so put it out there. I went live with the company July 1st of 2021. But leading up to that in 2020, I was just really reassessing who am I, what do I want, goals. I really started diving into my journey in spirituality, but also journaling and just self-awareness
Mm,
through a lot of journaling. I actually came to the realization that part of my purpose would lend itself to starting a company instead of working for someone.
mhm.
Because I couldn't find a firm, it gets close to me that it brought what I wanted to do, like I guess in my terms of purpose. Um, so yeah, so that became an idea. I'm a researcher, very type A person. So I research things. I got someone to help me with my PLLC because it's not a simple LLC. Professional
Mm.
LLC is goes back and forth between a few departments. So I'm like, I'll pay someone rather than do it myself. So that got done, but I did my logo. I did co-design my logo with my friend. I came up with the name. I did my colors, my branding. I did everything almost myself from the beginning as a designer. I really wanted to be authentically my vision. And
Mhm.
in terms of Root Architecture Studio, the name comes from it's multi-layered. I've always had a passion for nature. So you can see there's plants right there.
Mhm.
And it's embedded into who the company is, like sustainability, biophilic design. But and also I'm an immigrant. I moved to the United States at the age of 7 from El Salvador. I completely started new roots here in the United States. That this is my to me this is in some sense my home country, and that's just like my native country. But
Mhm.
also going back and like recreating those roots within my culture, which is a reason why I started with architecture studio. Like in terms of the purpose, I found myself at an intersection where I wanted to educate my culture, but also allow other minorities to feel included and inclusive in the architectural world where it feels like it's such a high end it is high ticket item, I have to
Yeah.
say, but I want to make it more accessible and also educate people of what we do, how it can be of service, and also create designs that encompass things that I believe in and not just these beautiful picture perfect images. It's not just these pretty pictures, like there's humans living in there. We're creating architects shape society, we inform. So I just want that's really the inception and substance of where it started.
Mm. I love your story, number one.
Thank you.
Coming over here at 7 years old and Rooted Architecture Studio makes so much more sense. And like you said, like the multi layers of the meaning there. I think that's great. And it sounds like you really hit your stride knowing that you're in full control. This is the path you want to go. Like you kind of paved the way and you're moving full steam ahead. And it sounds like it's kind of like you're either on the train or you're off the train when you come to Rooted. Like you're fully on or you're fully off and that's it.
Yeah.
But like they're getting on your train. You're not like adapting.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's flexibility because I always say I like doing client-centric design. So there is a
Right.
back and forth, but in a sense it's being open and receiving in both sides. Like I need to understand what you need, but at the same time you need to trust in my experience and design knowledge and
Right.
code knowledge and everything to do it correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I mean is like your brand is
Oh,
a
the
get
brand as
on
a whole,
board or
yeah,
get
yeah,
off
yeah.
board, you know. Obviously you're listening to your clients and you're reflecting what they are asking of
Oh
you.
yeah, for sure.
Um, but yeah, your brand is just like that's it. There's no
Yeah,
compromise there.
you're in or out, yeah, and I'm very non-traditional. Like you, thank you again for mentioning my website. To be fair, I have to plug it in. The website I have now is not the one I created.
Okay.
I have someone who like helped me create a much more elaborate website that reflects who the company is. Because
Hmm.
company's not just me; it's greater than me. But yeah, so in terms of education, like you'll go on there and you'll see that there's merchandise that's like architect, immigrant, Latino
Hmm.
themed. Just I wanted to be able to celebrate those parts of who I am, who are embedded in the company, as well as have booklets educating people. And I this year, one of my goals was to create courses, creating a more creating information that's accessible to people on demand. So like a lower ticket item where people can absorb the information, and when they're ready to actually do a project, they know to come back and let's get started on it. Yeah.
That's really cool. So you're giving them the easy entry. And then if they
Yeah.
want to move forward, then they at least already know you and they know what you have to offer and they know a little
Mhm.
bit of what it's like to be working with you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's smart. Smart move.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, it's funny because you're my 21st episode and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the majority of the people that I've spoken to on this podcast have all it's just so interesting how um COVID was a turning point for them. It's been a very common theme throughout the show is like I was sitting there during COVID and I was like poof, and you know, when you think about mental health and balance and who or what you really want to do, we don't get a lot of time to sit around and think about that, unfortunately. You know, like we're all in some way, shape, or form in the rat race. And as horrible as that time period was, I almost feel like there's gonna be a look back period where we start seeing the positive things that came out of that period were really, really special because I've talked to some people that have transformed and grown and created amazing businesses during that time, all because they were sitting around and they were like, I have nothing else to do but think. And it's like, you know, and if you just thought about that, where like we had more time to do that, you
Mhm.
know, I don't want to get too philosophical, but as a society, as people, if we had this again, more time in better circumstances to just sit around and be like, really, what would make me happy? What do I want to do? What do I want this to be? Without the pressure of, you know, having to, you know, have that nice thought with your coffee and run out the door. It's just I feel like the creativity and the amazing things that we would be doing would be leaps and bounds of where we already are. And that's saying a lot.
Yeah, no, it's so true.
It's crazy. Like so many crazy things have happened because people were not going to work and they were sitting around and they were thinking and they were just creating and it was like okay poof, and it was like almost like a renaissance. That's like our 21st century renaissance is like unfortunately like the year and a half of COVID where things were just out of whack.
Yeah, because society has been shaped in such a way to, and it might be my millennial thinking mindset of doing it's like culture of like you have to go always that extra mile, work super hard. In a way, it's like you're living to work rather than working to live. And
Hmm.
when we created that unfortunate pause, because many people unfortunately passed away, but
Right.
and people still have like sicknesses from it. But when a society we paused, you could see where it's like, oh, we actually should be working to live, like it should be adding to our passions. And mindfulness is so important, like just taking time. And also one thing because I was that person, I was like, go, 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 do everything. Biggest thing I learned is that you learning to burn out so much easier when you're in that sense.
Hey, what's up, guys? John from the Nest Egg team here. Thank you for watching so far. Really quickly, the real estate market is constantly changing. So if you're wondering what your home value is or how much equity you have in your home currently, click the link below in the description and you'll find out very quickly. Thanks for watching. Let's get back to the show.
Sense. And also when where you just go, you're not pouring into yourself, so you're never charging yourself back to like full. So you're never giving your full 100% to anything, your work, your family, yourself, which is so important. So I think that period really let out people were like, let me try a new hobby, let me do this, let me do that. So it did help many people.
Yeah, that was one of the few positives that I feel like came out of that time and that situation. But and then here we are, like people started these amazing things, and it's amazing that we could keep going with them. Which leads, so I want to talk about mental health and balance with architecture, but first, I think a lot of people really need an explanation of what an architect is, what an architect does, how you like who can be called an architect. So because
Oh,
I
okay.
honestly don't really know. So I would love to get the rundown on those three things.
All right, where to start? It's okay. So legally in the United States, because outside of the United States it's a little different. Legally in the United States, you're only allowed to be called an architect if you're licensed.
Okay.
Or like RA, so a registered architect. And
Okay.
we get our licenses per state. So right now I'm currently licensed in New York and New Jersey, but I'm also certified through this group called NCARB, which certification. So it allows me to easily be able to get licensed in other states if I want to.
Okay.
Some states do require more exams. Like my 2025 goal is to get my license in Florida. I need to do a hurricane test. So I need to prep to study for that before the sequencing of everything.
Okay.
And then to become licensed in itself, you need to have either a accredited 5-degree college degree, which is a Bachelor of Architecture, so it's a professional degree, or a
Okay.
4-year science in architecture and a 2-year accredited master's degree. So that adds up. And then in New York, you need 3 years worth of work experience. When I graduated, it had to be anything post-graduation. So now they allowed summer internships to count. So it shortens the period, but I started after. Other states have lower. I think it's a year and a half. So New York tends to be the most stringent state. And then you need to take 6 exams. They're each between 3 to 5 hours long. So on average, someone to become licensed, it takes from college degree to finishing education, everything. And on average, it takes someone almost 13 years.
Oh my goodness.
The shortest span is in New York is 8 years, or like 7.5 if you count like your summer internships. I did it in that shorter span, but I took my exams while doing those 3 years of work experience.
Okay.
I kind of like pigeonholed myself and focused for 11 months and took all of them in less than a year. And I knew
How
my
did that
study.
feel?
If you ask me what happened that year, I don't remember anything.
Total blackout. Like
It complete blackout. All I remember is that I would cry after every exam.
sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but I'm
No,
picturing
it's
like
okay. I still laugh at that. I would cry after exams. I wouldn't check. Like you would get the response a couple days later. So I would come out of them like I failed, and then by the time I took the last two, you were able to check like likely pass, likely fail, and I took the biggest ones. Each of them were 5 hours each, 2 days apart,
oh,
on December 27th and December 29th. So right after Christmas, right before New Year's. So I took the first one, didn't check. Took the second one, I checked, and then I went online to see the answer for the first one, and luckily I passed all of them the first time around.
Wow.
But
Wow.
and it's an investment because just in its each exam is, I want to say, $140,
Wow.
and
Okay.
if you fail, you have to redo them.
Right.
Um, plus that's, yeah, architecture is an expensive career.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely sounds like it. Like it's
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that intensive, honestly. Like
Well,
that's a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah, in terms of like what we do, I guess that's the last question I have answered. Or maybe I missed another one, but um, the license basically we take an oath saying that we're designing for the health, welfare, and safety of
Mm,
humanity and
mm,
even animals, I guess to a
wow.
degree.
I did so
So
there's an oath that's like a doctor oath. Like,
yeah, yeah, no,
yeah.
yeah. So actually, if someone who doesn't have a license is impersonating to be a licensed architect, they've have actually a couple of years ago, two people in New York went to prison for I think 5 to 10 years because they did that.
Really?
Same thing goes with like someone doing drawings and having someone else stamp for them, like an engineer. Like they
Mhm.
could, if people find out, they can go to prison as well.
Wow.
Just think about it. Doctors save lives one life at a time, one heartbeat at a time. We're creating our built environment that holds multiple heartbeats at a time. God forbid
Right.
something falls. And it's not just like the architects, the engineers, and other collaborators that we work with, but most of the time for a house, it tends to be mostly just the architect, unless
Mhm.
you have a very like a high-end residential probably needs an structural engineer because you have these massive spans. We need steel and all that stuff. But in that sense, architects, my favorite metaphor is that architects are the composers and the conductors of an orchestra. So we design it, that's the composing, but then we conduct the engineers, the other consultants, the permitters, and then during construction, we also oversee and observe the contractors, subcontractors, making sure they're building according to what we designed.
Mm,
And we're the ones who design based on building codes, zoning codes, and other codes at the same time. So it's really, we really are like that overseer of the whole project, from start to finish.
right, right.
Yeah.
Which is that there's a lot that goes into all that. So I'm sure
Yeah.
the client I'm sure the client relationship is can get intense at times. Because I know with real estate it can, and that's just, that's just basic sales, like
Mhm.
and making sure, things in a contract are being executed. But this is a totally different ball game. So I don't know if you want to speak to that or not.
Yeah, I think I mean, like, I think with every job, there are the aligned clients and the non-aligned clients that if you end up working with someone that's not fully aligned, and there will be some clash.
Mhm.
But yeah, we have to manage a lot to some degree. We're like psychologists too, like therapists. Like the
Yeah.
way I start my client projects, like prospecting with clients, I do exploratory call, and it's basically like a therapist intake form, but in relation to architecture. Like, tell me about your problems. Why is that making you feel wrong in the kitchen? And why is it not working? So
Mm,
really diving into those nuances. So it can be hard. Like I've had clients where I'm very young. They don't take me seriously. And like when I started, of course, my cost was a lot lower. So they were like, oh yeah, I'll go with you.
mhm.
Um, which was great. And I brought them way more value than what I was charging them. But they were questioning me because they're like, oh, you're young. Or and then there would be times where we're like, right, we'll do it your way. But if the town comes back with comments, it's an additional service. And lo
Right.
behold, that would happen. And I would just, on my own time, just laugh it off. I'm like, all right, I guess I get paid for the extra hours I should have done earlier.
Right.
Um, so yes, a give and take. But I do, it is also compromise in certain degrees where clients gives me all their dream ideas, and sometimes I have to bring them to earth, feet on the ground and say, okay, the code allows XYZ. We can do all of this, but maybe not this. And then it also comes with budget. People, unfortunately, I'm one of them. I used to love watching HGTV, but the prices there are Texas prices,
Right.
are Midwest prices. They're not New York prices or New
Right.
Jersey prices. So realizing that you really sometimes can't get everything in the cost you thought it would be
Mm-hmm.
is kind of a hard pill to swallow. But like I always like to talk about budget when I'm talking to them at the beginning, saying, okay, what are you budgeting? And also, usually when they budget, they're like, the construction will cost $100,000. And I'm like, all right, but what about the other costs? The architect, the permit fees, the surveyor, if you don't have an updated survey. If it's a commercial building or something, we need other engineers, all of that. They don't take into account those elements. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I like educate them at the beginning. I'm like, here, let me give you the base. So then you understand maybe we need to pause a few months and then you build up the funds so then we can do it or reduce. One other thing I do is like, let's face the project. What's a must now that you can afford? And then what's the next phase that we can do once you're like have more income, if it's commercial, like once you're making money and then you can expand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like this is something that comes up a lot here too. I love the idea. The discovery call to me is huge. It's one of the things that I always do with real estate too, like buyers, sellers, anything. It's like, let's do a discovery call first. Let me get the information. Um, and then the next part of it is like you're really setting expectations, which is I've talked about it so much, like beating a dead horse, but the people who I see who are successful, this is what they do. There's always expectations set and boundaries and just being upfront and honest, but making sure that people understand that there might be limitations and you're upfront about those limitations. And I think that probably goes a long way with the clients, if I had to guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I always get uh I always tell them I'll be as honest, so I will tell you the worst and the best. You
Hmm.
might hate me for telling you what might come up this the worst, but like I'd rather tell you now than in 2 months it pops up and you're like, you didn't tell me. I'm like, these
Hmm.
are the possibilities. I don't
Yep.
see into the future. I don't know the codes by heart when we're having that exploratory call. I literally have to do my job in order to just find all the nuances because everything's so custom.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you just said it. Like I say that all like I'd rather disappoint you now than disappoint you 6 months from now. Like I'd rather just tell you what I think is going to happen and we'll go from there.
Yeah,
And again, I think that too goes a long way with customers and just people feeling like they're getting the best service that they can get, the best experience that they can get, because no one wants to feel taken ever. And when people feel that they've been spoken to honestly and truthfully, and look, I feel like in those situations, like if it causes you to lose a client, you're probably better off. Like if you have someone that just wants to dominate you and just want to like they want it their way and they want you to do it their way, it's like, well, like I can't really work like that because there's things I have to do. Like I can't just
yeah,
bend and break to your every will and whim. So, in the
exactly.
end, it's like you're better off. Like if you set those expectations and they're like, no, we don't want to do it. It's like, okay, I'd probably, maybe lost a little bit of money, but saved myself a ton of headaches.
Yeah, yeah. And like definitely something I learned is like in the entrepreneurship journey is learning your own worth and being confident, which is something I've been working on in the past 2 years. Um, because if you don't hold that boundary of like what your worth is, you and they want it, and it's a client say that just going for the lowest price, and you think you really need that project, then you start shortchanging yourself. You're gonna work extra hard for less money, and it's usually those clients I've learned that want the lowest price that tends to want the more services.
Hmm.
And it's not like that, because if they need the lowest price they can go with someone who has a lower cost than me, and then maybe down the line if they say no to that, I'll get a client who understands my worth and understands the value and will pay for it.
Hmm.
And you get to see, like, I've learned my own lesson. Like, I think we've all done it where we're like, we're trying to save, we go with the cheapest price, but then we get what we pay for. Like it doesn't come out well. Like I had something like that happen to my accountant. I switched accountants. I went with the lower one just because budgeting wise, I'm like, this might fit more. 6 months in, I switched to the other accountant who was twice the price because she literally was doing forecasting and other things. And now I feel comfortable leaving the numbers with her and it's being done right. So
Mm-hmm.
investing, it's not an expense. I always say like when you're hiring a professional, it's an investment. Not like you're not wasting the money. You're investing it so you can have peace of mind and trust someone to do the work correctly.
Right. Because there's going to be a return that's way more valuable.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's the key to the investment. Like,
Like if you look at you as a real estate agent or me as an architect, our fees are a micro fraction of the bigger picture. When you're buying a
mhm.
home, your fee is only a small percentage. Likewise, with architectural services, our cost is a small percentage of the construction cost. It's not
Sure.
like we're 50% in. It's not like you're paying 50,000, you're paying 100,000 for construction. It's a smaller number. So if you look at it in that perspective, you're like, let me pay those extra $1,000 now for a good design so then we're not doing change orders or major changes because there will always be something in construction that pops up. We're opening a wall, there's mold, there's asbestos, there's something, there will be. But that's why budgeting I always tell clients keep 10 to 15% extra to the side for unforeseeables because you never know. Also, the town messes up. I had an instance last week that I live in Glen Cove. I know the building department there is like my family. Like so we filed the project a while back and I'm like dotting my I's, crossing my T's. I'm like, okay, we have all the right forms. Are we good here? Like, we don't need this and that. And they're like, sure. We got a permit. And then they come back like, oh, you need to submit an AC application. You didn't submit it and you can't proceed until like you do the work. And I'm like, but we went over this. And they're like, well, we changed our rules. Now we want split units as part of central AC systems. And I'm like, but it's not a central AC system. It's a split unit. So it was just I had to go to the client like, look, the town changed their procedures. We need to apply this. We have to pause for a week so they can process it. And sometimes we just have to go with it. The client was a little sad and mad about it, but I'm like, it's not my fault. Towns
Right.
mess up too. So
Right.
that's a delay in the schedule, but what can we do?
Yeah, I mean, you have to like people have to know that these processes and systems are never perfect and it's
Yeah.
just, how much can you plan for and, plan to avoid and then how quickly can you mitigate the issues that do come up because they always
Yeah.
come up like you said. I've had that conversation so many times too of like with construction, like I've had a lot of people that do different types of things and it's like, yeah, that exactly what you said. As soon as you start opening up walls, you never know what you're going to find and you got to be able to plan accordingly because especially we're dealing with a lot of now on Long Island especially, a lot of neighborhoods houses are old. We're talking 60s, 50s, 70s, so we're talking a house that are between 50 and 70 years old, like a lot of them, a lot of these neighborhoods are, so you're going to, even you do a home inspection, you get everything done on the buy side and then after you get into the house and a few weeks later and something winds up going wrong. Like it's just the nature of the beast. And nobody did anything, no one was malicious, no one was trying to hide anything. It's just what happens because you're dealing with 70-year-old products that they're
Yeah.
gonna have issues beyond what you could see. So it's
Yeah.
something that people have to be wary of, but it's also something that you have to be conscious of. Like I try and tell my buyers, like, really don't want to buy the oldest house, even if that's a good price, because the older the house, the more problems you're probably gonna have, especially as you try and
Hmm.
update.
Yeah. Yeah. Just keeping an open mind. Like I've done work on 100-year-old house,
Mhm.
and the only beautiful thing about it is that back then you have true 2x4s, 2x10s, and the structure is so much stronger than now. So I'm like, let's keep the floor joists, let's keep the exterior walls, let's just work with the interior because
That's
that in
interesting.
itself is better. But unless the foundation is really crumbling, that's
Mhm.
another thing that I've seen. Was working with a contractor with a house in Albany that we were going to underpin, so we were going to add more concrete below, but the existing foundation was just crumbling, so we just had to do a completely new foundation.
Okay. And that's costly, right?
Yeah, thank God it was her own house, so she was saving on like the labor because she was just having her team do it. But
Okay.
yeah, it was a lot of money.
Goodness. All right. Well, that's that's like a terrifying scenario. But yeah, that stuff happens. You got to be
Yeah.
prepared for it. Um, I saw on your website, and I did want to touch on this. You have a blog about mental health and architecture and everything, and I think that's really cool. Because we were talking about it before, mental health is a big thing. I feel like we're becoming more conscious of it now and trying to make sure that we're monitoring that for ourselves and everybody. But what are some of the things that architecture can do to help with mental health and emotional balance and stuff like that?
Yes. So one thing that we don't realize, I think it's more subconscious, unconscious, is that our environment and spaces really affect our senses and how we feel overall. So being more, again, we talked about at the beginning, the mindfulness. Being mindful where you're in and how you're feeling then makes you realize like, oh, this doesn't work for me. And I say that because I have a course called sensory friendly architecture, and it's geared towards more neurodivergent people. But in terms of overall senses and like health, I think we all could use some sensory regulations overall. And our spaces do that. Like for instance, being a very dark, gloomy, no window space will feel claustrophobic. It's very like common knowledge, but if you start thinking of more architecturally, that's why there's codes also of windows for every bedroom for
Mhm.
egress to exit out for fires, but thankfully also natural light so you can get that fresh air intake. And other things like colors, like some people do really well with darker colors, others need pastels. If you're neurodivergent, you tend to have more muted, softer colors, but also textures, how you feel, because like if you're like in a very like static mundane space, like you're gonna like not be focused or overwhelmed. And I always say, like, also I link it back to nature. So biophilic design is integrating nature into architecture or just overall spaces. And one thing we have to remember, we are nature. Like humankind is part of the natural environment that as a whole is nature, including the cosmos and all of that. So connecting back to nature as a whole helps us feel calm. There have been plenty of studies in the healthcare world, like hospitals, recovery rooms, of when you have bigger windows, more natural light, you have natural colors like greens, pale blues, plants, anything relating back to nature. It actually helps people recover faster.
Mm,
So
interesting.
they do a lot. So it started in cancer treatment rooms, like infusion rooms, also in mental facilities, like health
Hmm.
facility. They started to integrate all of these like biophilic or nature connection um aspects to have them speed up and improve their health first. I have healthcare experience like work wise, so I wanted to also embed this into residential and commercial because you don't need to be sick to feel better. Like, what if we implement these elements in your home, creating a safe haven, um, and creating also offices that make you feel comfortable. So then, if you're having a stressful day, your space is not elevating that; it actually can help you
Mm.
calm down. And like for instance, like again with the plants, you see like my walls dark green in my office. I personally can't take all white rooms. Like for me, white it's too stark and it throws me off and
Hmm.
heightens my anxiety. So having more darker muted colors like green that overlap with that actually keep me grounded in a sense. So it's
Yeah.
just all of that. So it's I like to do it personally with each person, but overall it's like natural light, warm colors, like wood textures, natural materials really rec- I know it just sounds like so like woo woo, but like it truly reconnects you, grounds you. into
Yeah, yeah,
nature because it just like keeps you that way. Like it's the same sense of when you go for a hike or you go to the
right.
beach. You feel so calm. How can you
Hmm.
create those similar elements in an enclosure in architecture?
Yeah, it's smart. I mean, you know, like you said, I was thinking as you were saying it, or a little before, like, yeah, like when I go for a walk outside, I feel great. You know, just being
Yeah.
outside, fresh air, and everything. So the more you can incorporate that into the design of your own home, the more likely you are to be relaxed. I mean, it's very, very logical. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a lot of clients go do that more? I don't want to say to the extreme, but are trying to bring as much of the, you know, natural world into their house now? Like, are you starting to see that as a trend, or is that something that you're discussing with your clients and trying to figure out, like, okay, like if we bring these things in because of who you are, this might be um really good for you?
Um, a little bit of both. So definitely I try to bring it into every project I discuss, and how they're feeling, like getting to the root of the problem, why the space doesn't work. And sometimes it is sensory, it's how they feel, or spatially, maybe they don't need an open concept. Maybe they're the
Hmm.
type of person who needs more defined spaces that can still be done in kind of with large openings, but defining spaces they don't feel like overwhelmed by the big space. Or they have kids who need those little nooks and crannies to kind of play in to feel comfortable.
Hmm.
Um, but in terms of trends, there are some elements that I see that are being involved. So in the commercial end, a living wall is kind of like been a trend for a few years now. How to use plants and have a breathable wall to help with the interior air quality. That's definitely like in the commercial sense. In residential, it has been a trend for a while, like the farmhouse. That in itself is like
Mm.
having the windows specifically designed to the exterior, butcher countertops, like butcher wood countertops, warmer tones, greens, um, and
That's
all
so
of those
funny because
elements.
I did
Yeah,
not think of that, like, when you were like, it's already there, like, with the butcher block and those and the farmhouse. It's like, it was, like, very subversively thrust upon us already, but it makes I'm like, I didn't even think of that. That's so, so funny that you said that, because now it's like, "Oh, yeah, like, it's already here, like, nature is my
yeah.
house."
And,
Yeah.
and, and yeah, and you get I get like three types of people. There are the people who are obsessed with modern architecture, so all white, black trim, clean minimalism. Then you
Mhm.
get the people who do like those brick homes, those like ornamentation, like elaborate. They want a little more culture into their spaces. And then like you get those the farmhouses in between where they're like they probably are the people who like to go on walks, to go to the beach, who like to be in nature, and they unconsciously like, oh, I like this. It makes me feel calm. But then when you start pulling out the pieces of the what creates a farmhouse, then you realize it is all these elements I was talking about. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's I mean, so simple, but yet, um, like I said, everybody has their own taste and everything. So yeah, I feel like I'm definitely gravitating away from the all white and black minimalist type of
Mhm.
situation. Like, I'm definitely feeling the blues lately. Like, and you know, obviously, I guess. But I like walking into a house now that, like one of the listings I have now, their dining room is like a nice light blue big picture frame window, and I'm like, "Oh, like, I love this room, like, this is my favorite room in the house." Um, and it's not white, it's not gray, you know, it's and it's been that way for a while, and, you know, I'm sure things always change trend-wise and everything, but it's
Yeah.
nice to not be in a gray or white room. It's really actually kinda comforting.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I try to tell my clients, or like want to tell people, I guess, who's listening, just because there's a trend doesn't mean you need to do it. Like you have to put your authentic self into the spaces you're inhabiting often. One thing, it's like you're designing an office space, so you need it to be brand designed to a brand of who your company is, what you want to evoke to your clients. But your home should be who you are and also include culture and all of that sense. Because like my worst thing is like you want to do a modern home, so you have this like status that you made it and you get it, but then it's like if you're like a minority, there's culture around like having this elaborate kitchen you're constantly cooking, or you have these beautiful colors that you use in your culture and you want to reflect it at your home, but you're afraid to do it. So you're like, why not do it tastefully from the beginning? And then people are going to remember your house like, oh my God, I remember John's house. It had all these beautiful shades of blue. It made me feel calmer as I walked through the space.
Mm-hmm.
And there is colorology, there is psychology behind colors and shades and all of that. So you can do the research yourself. I have actually a booklet on paint and that talks based on it a bit, but or you can hire the architect, or if it's just interior design aesthetics and like finishes, you can hire an interior designer and you can work with them to create the palette that works best for you. Yeah.
It's funny that when you mentioned the trends, the first thing that came to my mind that I made sure I said no to was the shiplap wall. Like my wife wanted to do it. She's like, "Oh, well, we should do that shiplap wall." I'm like, "Absolutely not." I'm like, "This will be you will hate this, I will hate this, and the whole world is going to hate this in about 3 years." And I'm starting to see them less and less. Like I'm not seeing them get thrown up as much anymore. I right away, it was that barn doors, which I've talked about a bunch of times. Like I was like, no barn doors, absolutely not. Like they're too annoying. Like there's certain times where they are functional and worthwhile, but the majority of the time, just to like put in a barn door when you could have a door, like, no, we're gonna have a door. But shiplap was my big one where I was like, absolutely
Oh,
not.
you're
This
gonna
is
hate me. I love chiplap, but again, there's a time and place. So
yeah.
for me, chiplap means cabin house,
Hmm.
like summer home, like near a
Right.
forest. Like
Right.
it's not meant to be in your Long Island house, unless it's like maybe your game room or like a main man cave where you're creating that band, so it makes it's like deeper brown. So there's elements, but yeah, like I don't want it everywhere. I love
Yeah.
Chip and Joanne games, but they've made those two things so popular.
Hmm. They did. And it's like, it's it's more that it's like the trend. So the trend, just from walking into like, I don't know, 1,000 houses at this
Yeah.
point and seeing stuff like, it's easier to spot a trend that is not going to be something that's
Yeah.
super long lasting. It's easier to say like, okay, like, yeah, this is going to be around for a little while, but it's not going
Mhm.
to be around forever.
Yeah.
Um
There's
and that's
those
the way I've
time.
felt about shiplap.
Yeah, because there are those timeless design elements that will always give value to your home.
Mhm.
Um, and like for instance, like I think the open concept, I know I've mentioned that it's not for everyone, it isn't, but there are elements of having connection between the kitchen and the living room and all of
Mhm.
that. So it can be done tastefully in different ways and just doesn't have to be one big open first floor.
Right.
So it's but it's like the idea and then how do you implement it into that specific building
Right.
or space. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of those things when it first started coming around, and once I was like home shopping when open concept was really um becoming big. Like I mean, it was like it's been around forever. It's
Yeah.
not like, but it was becoming really popular, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, this is not going away. Like this thing is here to stay. There's definitely a little bit of pushback on it where people do want separate space for certain things and everything, but overall, the idea of open concept done, like you said, the right way is it's still I think it's gonna be around for a long time because functionally too, it is very it's very useful in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
It's good to have open concept.
Yeah. Yeah. But you have to like be able to define what do you want to be public and what do you want to be private and what's that transitional space.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
one thing I've noticed, like you want such a big open space and you're stuck with a bedroom opening to that open space, and then that whoever lives in that bedroom has no privacy at all.
Right. Right. Yeah, there's gotta be some limitations.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right. Well, listen, crazy. We barely scratched the surface, but we're almost going on an hour here, so I don't want to keep you much longer because I'm sure you want to go home. Um, so let's go into the last phase here. So we'll do two things. The first thing is I'm big on referrals. We love referrals. This is kind of a referral podcast where people get to meet you and, like pre-interview you.
Mhm.
So if there's any 2 or 3 businesses that you want to give a shout out to that you really love, go right ahead.
Ooh, okay. I know we talked about this. Now I'm going a major blank. Okay,
Do you want me to remind you because I have it here?
no, no. I'm probably gonna say different names, but like
Okay.
I'll no. All right. People I referral. So one person who I think every entrepreneur needs is a financial strategist. So I have my financial strategist. Her name is Francine. And she has the Wealth Academy, a consulting academy company, and she's also the co-founder of the Latina Business Network
Mm,
um, of New York. It's a
mhm.
loan outline networking group where we this year we donated $15,000 for the National Suffolk Services of Autism.
Oh, wow.
So it's really a community of Latina women who kind of really support each other and give back, but just her services themselves. She's helped me really. I can only brainstorm all my ideas so much that you need feedback of adjusting. So I think that's important. Like financial strategy as an entrepreneur is key, especially if you're running your business and starting, you're not sure where to go. You don't have a business background. It's super helpful.
Mm.
um, I want one of my other friends, one of my friends, her name's Nicole Helmus. She owns a gym in Glen Cove. It's called Level Up. It's a group gym. And she also, I surround myself with people in nonprofits. So she also has a nonprofit called Level Up Care. So she, through that, she donates money, but also does a free program for kids so they learn how to move, to learn that it's okay. Like it's good to move your body and to exercise and do it
Mm.
properly. And lastly, oh my God, now I'm drawing a complete blank. Um, uh, um, let's see. Can you give me a reference of who I wrote
I
it down?
think you mentioned a business coach?
Oh yes, my business coach. So business coach is Jessica Rivera. She goes by Coach Jessica Rivera on Instagram. Um, she has been pivotal in helping me gain confidence and really be determined on like action planning and all of that. I'm currently in a program with her called Communicate to Lead. So it's literally teaching you how do you communicate yourself, to your team, how do you communicate as a leader, and how do you communicate to your clients. So she has vast of experience working in sales, and now she just coaches like executives in like high business, but also does these group programs for entrepreneurs.
Oh, wow, that's
And
really
she's
cool.
starting Communicate to Lead program again, like for the uh for the new year. She's starting that soon for signups. So those are my three beautiful representations. Yeah.
There sounds like they help you make your world go round, which is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, Catherine, it was awesome having you on.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on and telling your story. This was really cool and interesting. And like I said, I feel like we didn't scratch the surface, but I definitely learned a lot.
Yeah.
So we'll probably have to do this again to get more into the nuts
Yeah.
and bolts of architecture.
We'll do part two, and then we'll dive into other not other trends that might actually work.
Yeah. This is what always happens. It's like we have a plan, so many topics, and it's like we discuss a few things, but that's what I love about it because it's just really
Yeah.
cool to
Yeah.
again like hear your story is like awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you for coming on, and we will see you next time.